Hi everybody, Dimitri Bilgir here, talking again about some facilitation tips. Today I think it's going to be a pretty quick one. If you've done much of this carpet work or something like that, you're familiar with the concept of regression. Regression being whenever there's some sort of difficult situation in a person's life, some sort of repeating dynamic, it's asking and finding out about when was the first time this happened to you? What's your first memory of this happening? And then setting up a healing process based around that first time it happened, rather than based around what's currently going on. So this is a really common thing in the kind of healing work a lot of us do. I don't really do this, and I want to talk to you today about why I don't and how you might want to think about it a little differently. So, my first teacher in personal development, Ron Herring, right? We were talking about him a few days ago here on these little videos. He was a fan of regressing. He said you want to get back to the very first time some sort of cycle started, some sort of traumatic things happened to somebody, and heal that. And if you can heal that, all the rest of their life sort of along that same psychological structure gets healed. I think you can make a case for that. But there are several reasons why I'd like you to consider that possibly regressing isn't the best thing you can do. Certainly at the time, remember, Ron died 25 years ago. That was a while ago when that was sort of the state-of-the-art thinking. So somebody steps out, they have some sort of problem. They'd say something like, I think I was saying yesterday, like, I want to get in touch with my power. Or I'm afraid of commitment. Those are kind of nebulous in a way. And so the way regression thinking goes is like, you want to find out what was it that happened that caused them to be afraid of their power, or to feel like they don't have access to their power, or whatever it is. So you might say, okay, well, who told you that you had to be afraid of commitment? Or who used power on you in a way that made you feel like it was unsafe? Right? So what we're looking for there is we're looking for the first or close to the first time this person had an interaction with that concept that ended up being traumatic. Now, what I'm telling you is I don't think that's that great an idea. Certainly, I don't object to it, but here's how you might want to think about it differently. The upside of getting back to the first time it happened, to getting back to mom or dad or brother or school teacher or whoever sort of inflicted this on you so that you had this repeating dynamic of helplessness or hopelessness or anger or whatever in your life. If you can get back to that, okay, that's probably a good place to heal it from, but here's why I think that's a problem. When we insist on getting back to how this was done to us in healing work, we reinforce the idea that the problems that we have are because of someone else. And I'm not crazy about this. We get to like, yes, okay, I have this repeated pattern where I'm afraid of my power. And then I regress it and I get back to, because my dad used power in a really destructive way or something like that. But it gets back to blaming dad or blaming mom. But really, if you're, I like to say, if your dad isn't walking around behind you saying you're not good enough, then it's not about him anymore. It's about you. It's about what you're carrying inside yourself. It's what you're saying to yourself. So I prefer what I think is kind of a more empowering approach, which is if someone wants to work feeling like they're not in touch with their power or being afraid of responsibility, to actually pick somebody to play power, find out what that says. Pick somebody to play responsibility, find out what that says. And if you do that well, if you set out those parts cleanly, and I've had some videos in this series on setting out role players really cleanly and clearly, you will be able to do really, really good work that really does get to the core of it without having to go back and figure out who's to blame. Now, I know none of us who are facilitating are looking for somebody to blame. I'm just saying this is kind of a side effect of regressing. Back when we didn't really know how to work really cleanly, I think regressing really helped. But you can get, if you really figure out what they want, and I've talked about that on these videos, how to do that. And if you put out role players who play the different voices in their psychological structure, if you put those out really clearly and correctly, which I've also talked about in this series, You don't need to regress that back to whose fault is this. You don't need to reinforce this idea that because of someone else, your life is the way that it is. And I like the idea of reinforcing that, we are the way we are and we have control over that, and not blaming ourselves, but taking responsibility, saying, oh wow, I have been telling myself this. I think I'm going to do a piece of work so I'm no longer telling myself that power is dangerous, or responsibility will end up hurting me, or whatever it is. So anyway, just kind of coming out. I know, I think a lot of people are very into regression. If it works for them, great. But this is just an alternate point of view. Also, by the way, your process will go faster if you don't regress, because you don't have to do that whole loop. So things to consider. If you want to share this with anybody, go ahead and do it. Facebook will notify you if you ask them. Just touch some sort of button. It'll tell you when I come online. And I'm doing this every week, so I will see you next Monday, and we'll start this again. Okay, bye.